Washington amid bipartisan praise over the last 24 hours.
President Trump did the right thing by walking away.
Border agents arrest 180 illegal immigrants crossing into New Mexico.
We're going to be building over 200 miles of wall. They said, could you call it slats or barriers? And we played the game for a little while, and then you just say, hey, look, you can't have border security without a wall.
The State Department putting a $1 million bounty on Osama bin Laden's son, Hamza bin Laden, wanted for threatening to attack America.
Larry Kudlow addressing CPAC.
Put socialism on trial and then convict it.
Benjamin Netanyahu will be indicted on 3 separate charges. In the last few hours, Netanyahu responded to the indictments, calling the whole investigation a, quote, witch hunt.
And I need for this Democrat Congress to understand that we don't need to rewrite the Constitution. They need to reread the Constitution. I need them to understand that.
You all for being with us today.
I like the semicircle. I really think this is fantastic.
Bigger group this time. Last time we just had this little area, and now we have.
Right.
I know it.
Hey, everyone.
It's fantastic. Hey, you picked a great day to come to New York City because we've got a gigantic program. Fan favorites, Diamond and Silk, are going to be with us.
No, we need more? Is that it? I think that's enough.
We have Pete Hegseth, we have Kurt Knudsen, we have Congressman Sean Duffy and his wife, Rachel Compost Duffy. Who else do we have, Ryan?
Kirk Cameron's going to be here live. Tom Homan intends to stay like it is. One of the funniest comedians in the country. If you have not seen him live, I know you've seen him on the show. You got to check him out. Michael Loftus, Rachel Cruz will be here answering a lot of your questions.
That's right. So you picked a great day, and of course it's a news channel, so let's start with the news. How many of you here today were happy that the president walked out of the summit with Kim?
Did you hear? Nancy Pelosi even complimented him for that. So he's getting bipartisan support for this deal, for walking away from the deal at least.
Indeed. So right when he was done, he went over and talked to Sean Hannity. It's the first time they had met. I'm only kidding. He said, here's what happened. Here's behind the scenes. Let's listen.
It's a much tougher deal to make. Maybe it won't get made, but that's the deal that we should have. And you can't give up everything if you don't get that. Now, we could have done large portions, but you're not getting that. So we'll see what happens. Again, the relationship is very good. He likes me. I like him. Some people say, oh, you shouldn't like him. I said, why shouldn't I like him? I like him. Get along great. We'll see what happens.
Well, the other thing they added is North Korea came out and actually had a press conference. They said, no, I don't know what America's talking about. We just asked to have sanction relief that impeded the civilian economy and the livelihood of our people.
Right.
The president did not come back like he would, let's say, when he was going against Hillary Clinton, because he knows this is international diplomacy. But that's basically not what happened.
Well, and you think about it, with Ed Henry's reporting yesterday, he said, Kim did something that he'd never done before, and that was taking questions from a reporter the night before. So why suddenly is he taking questions from reporters, which he's never done, and then he sends the foreign minister out to make a statement? Yeah, I don't know what the United States is talking about. Because they were shocked that Trump actually got up and walked out. Now, going in, apparently the president was told by advisors, he told advisors he did not want to appear too eager to give away the store because then analysts would say, look what he got. And we had a signing ceremony. So instead, the president said, this is not the deal that I'm angling for, so I'm out of here.
Well, the president said I want to denuke everything, and I'm not going to just lift 4 sanctions. That's what they're saying in state news in North Korea, that they didn't say that they wanted all sanctions lifted. They just wanted 4 sanctions lifted. That's not enough. The president said we'll lift them all possibly if you denuke your entire country.
Right. Just to add, I just got texted from somebody who was actually there, said no agreement.
Mike Pompeo again?
They wanted what they got from prior administration's economic relief, which was what brought them to the table. But without complete denuclearization, there would be no deal. And they were surprised that we held to that.
Yeah. And Kim was shocked that the United States stood up and walked out. Meanwhile, what is going on behind closed doors in Washington, D.C.? There was a bill to expand federal background checks for gun purchases, and 26 Democrats actually joined Republicans amending the legislation so that ICE would be notified in the event that an illegal alien tried to buy a handgun.
Which, by the way,
like
is logical.
Idea, right?
Yeah, it sounds like a great thing to add that Republicans brought up.
Those 26 Democrats vote for that.
No kidding. Right. Well, Nancy Pelosi, as it turns out, though, was furious, and she lashed out at the 24 moderates who voted with the Republicans, and she pressured them, you got to get on board. She said, we are either a team or we are not. We have to make that decision. So we've all got to vote exactly the same. Don't forget about that bipartisan thing. But vote if you're a Democrat.
Then AOC upped the ante. One of her spokespersons said she went into the room and she looked at all these moderates and said, you are going to be on a list. If you continue to vote with these Republicans, you continue to be moderate, and you're not extreme like all of us, then we will put you on a list and we'll make sure activists get you out of office and upseat you in 2020.
Can you believe the arrogance of a freshman there for weeks, not years, to call out others who have been there forever, who might be, for example, elected in Trump-won districts? They can't afford, or get this, they might not want to vote against this because they actually believe in it. So the Washington Post has this quote from people from their reporting. They say House Democrats exploded in recriminations Thursday over moderates bucking the party. Can we believe that? Moderates? With liberal Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez threatening to put those voting with Republicans, get this, on a list for a primary challenge. She bragged that she has a text message link to a link to activists that will immediately primary them. My goodness, good luck. A moderate won in a Trump-won district, and you want to put a liberal there? You know who should be high-fiving? Kevin McCarthy, because that means a Republican will walk right through with that seat.
This is pretty scary. It's bullying. It's saying if you don't vote with us, then we're going to get you out of office. We're going to make sure every single Democrat thinks the way that we do.
Well, and the Democrats have had some embarrassments in the last week or two because there have been some procedural votes that they've actually lost on, which is extraordinary because they hold a majority. Now, in the past, the Republicans have done very well with that. So Nancy Pelosi and AOC are very, they are very in sync with the message. We have to be on the same team. Mike Debonis, who is the Washington Post writer who did this particular bit of reportage, said inside Thursday's tense House meeting of the Democrats, an exasperated Pelosi demanded moderates stiffen their spines, AOC threatening to put them on a list, and moderates begging for forbearance. Republican floor mischief paying off in spades, he writes.
Yeah, keep this in mind, too. They also brought Medicare for all front and center. And there are some Democrats who are sober enough to understand that how dumb that would be, because not only would that be not accessible unless you love the way motor vehicle runs or the way the VA has been producing.
Getting better.
Yeah, fantastic. The problem is private insurance. Over 70% of the American public have private insurance and like it. This would destroy it. So Democrats just said, I'm not really for this, and they got blasted. So let's see what's going to happen.
I wonder how a Joe Manchin feels about this and how his constituents feel about this, because you can't force. You have to vote. You have to vote according to what your constituents feel.
Right.
Otherwise,
you're walking the plank.
You can't have a Joe Manchin who represents, a moderate area. You can't have him voting with what they're voting for in California. It's totally different.
Well, what's going to happen is a lot of this stuff is going to die in the House. It's never going to get to the Senate. And sadly, you remember Republicans were very frustrated. They put all this stuff together, and the Senate wouldn't even vote on it. Now it's role reversal.
All right. Anyway, a lot going on in the news. Thank you very much for joining us. Meanwhile, Jillian joins us right now. She's right over there, ladies and gentlemen.
That's right. Good Friday morning. And we begin with a Fox News alert. The State Department putting a $1 million bounty on Osama bin Laden's son. Hamza bin Laden is emerging as the new leader of al-Qaeda. He has threatened attacks against the U.S. and our allies for the death of his father at the hands of U.S. Navy SEALs. I love you. That will be $5. Those were the bizarre final words from a death row inmate executed in Texas overnight. Billy Cobble put to death by lethal injection 30 years after shooting and killing his estranged wife's parents and her brother, a police officer. His children became violent watching the execution, kicking, throwing fists, and yelling obscenities. The governor of Washington state has his eyes on Washington, D.C. Democrat Jay Inslee is expected to announce his 2020 presidential bid today. His top issue, climate change, which he calls the real national emergency. Inslee would be the 10th Democrat to run for the 2020 nomination. Okay, said that Bryce was right for Philadelphia. The Phillies, the Phillies signing Bryce Harper to the biggest contract in MLB history. The star outfielder is getting a whopping 13-year, $330 million deal. 13 years.
9 years old.
I know. Harper spent the last 7 seasons with the Washington Nationals. He is a 6-time All-Star and won NL MVP in 2015. Actually, Brian, we were talking about this yesterday.
Yes.
People in Philadelphia did not expect this. They were giving up on it.
It's amazing. But he's going to have to live on
anyone with me?
How many times does he have to go to the World Series to pay that back?
Every time.
Every
All right.
time.
We got a big crowd here. Let's meet some of the folks, ladies and gentlemen. Hi, I'm Steve, along with Ainsley and Brian. Welcome to the program. What's your name, sir?
Nathan.
Nathan, where are you from?
I'm from here in Manhattan.
Oh, did anybody travel more than 1 block? What's your name?
Juanita Outlaw.
Juanita, where do you live?
Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
All right. So what do you think about this news about Bryce Harper?
I'm a Saints fan.
Okay. All right. What's your name?
Don't
sir?
bring up
Bruce.
the playoffs.
Hey, Bruce, how are you? How long you been watching Fox and Friends?
Gosh, for as long as it's been on, I guess.
Oh, that's fantastic. Okay, now, at what point in the day do you actually turn on the television, and what time do you turn it off?
Oh, well, we mostly DVR stuff, so sorry. We turn it on whenever, usually late at night when we get home. And
So you actually watch our program during Tucker Carlson. Just so crazy. And one other person, real quickly, is there a Christy Cleha here?
Yes.
Oh, hello, Christy. How are you?
Hi. Good.
Now, I understand you told one of our producers a secret.
Yes.
Once upon a time, back when I was in my 20s or 30s.
Yes, you used to be on NBC4 in D.C.
That's right.
And I used to watch you then, and I still watch now.
Look at that. You follow me. Well, it is great to meet you.
Yes, you
and
too.
after like 30 years. Thank you very much. Anyway, so we got a great crowd. Did anybody travel more than 500 miles? Oh, my goodness. About 10
a lot of people. Almost everybody.
Louisiana.
That's good.
San Antonio.
All right.
All right.
Hey, great crowd. All right.
Indiana. Nice.
Buckle your seatbelts, folks, because we've got a bumpy show.
Yes, Larry Kudlow sending this rally cry to the crowd at CPAC.
Join us to put socialism on trial and then convict it.
What does our audience think about that? Stick around.
These very attractive, nice people all across the country representing the Fox and Friends audience. You guys were kind enough to come in for us, petition, email us. We followed up, but now you're here. You've been patted down. You passed the background check. Thank you very much. Yesterday, Larry Kudlow went to CPAC. You guys familiar with CPAC, that conservative conference? So Larry Kudlow went to CPAC, and now he's joined the administration. In the past, he's been representing CNBC. Great speaker, great broadcaster, and he came out and said, hey, guys, I got a theme. And it's called socialism. Not good. Listen.
You know, President Trump is providing leadership. He's kind of changed the whole psychology. I mean, we've gone from pessimism to optimism. Right there is a major change. He has ended the war on business. He has ended the war on energy. He has ended the war on success. So I'm here with just one simple ask. Please, join us to keep America great. And join us to put socialism on trial and then convict it.
And it's pretty amazing, too, because so many of the candidates so far on the left are saying, yeah, socialism. Beto O'Rourke yesterday went out of his way to say, no, I'm a capitalist. I like to see that. I also like to see him once in a while roll down his sleeves and put on a tie. But that's just see what happens. Hey, I want to find out what you guys think of socialism. And I think Christian's over here, right? Christian, you're from... Stefan, you're Christian's over there. Stefan, you are from?
I grew up from in Poland.
You grew up in
Poland? The communism, basically early years, 70s.
So when did you come here?
In 78.
So what did you leave?
What did I leave over there? It's just, we left over there, the communism over there, no freedom, nothing.
But yet everything was guaranteed, wasn't it? Didn't you have health care?
No, there was only guaranteed for there's two types of people. There's people in power rich, and there's people with no money, poor people. There is no middle up there. Basically, we're the lower class, you could actually
Does
say.
it concern you that we're talking socialism in this country?
Definitely, it's the same thing. It's just it's communism, but in a different form type of a deal.
It's overwhelming. 18 to 24-year-olds, over 50% want socialism. Christian, where are you from?
New York City.
From New York City. And what's your view on the socialistic leanings of the next generation?
I mean, it just doesn't really make any sense when you look at places like Venezuela, that used to be sort of like the gem of South America, and now you look at it without getting into too much graphic detail. I mean, why would anyone willingly want that?
Well, it's guarantees, right? It's guarantees. You got to go compete, and that's what capitalism represents. All right, so listen, coming up next, we're going to talk to the audience throughout the 2.5-hour show because they're all wonderful people, and we gave them free coffee, so they must be alert. Speaking of CPAC, Diamond and Silk are going to be here. They're going to come here next. They're walking through the door. And we're going to have much more coming your way. Even Governor Christie's going to be here live. Great show. Don't move.
Friends, live with our live studio audience. Here's our next topic. Left-wing commentator Van Jones shocked audiences at CPAC by praising the conservative movement for leading the charge on just-passed criminal justice reform.
And what you're seeing now are Republican governors being tough on the dollars, tough on crime, and shrinking prison populations, and showing the rest of the country that it can be done. This is supposed to be my issue. You are stealing my issue.
Joining us now to react, social media stars, Trump supporters, and Fox Nation hosts Diamond and Silk. Good morning, ladies.
Good
Yesterday,
Yes.
I understand the audience just went wild when y'all came out.
Yes, it was phenomenal. I mean, a beautiful experience.
Amazing.
Just being there with like-minded people, talking about our freedoms and us being very patriotic. We loved it.
What do you think about Van Jones praising Republicans?
Well, you have to understand that Van Jones has been a long advocate for criminal justice reform.
That's right.
So to see him give honor where honor is due, praising this administration for trying to solve this problem, I appreciate that.
Yeah, but you know what? He's apparently taking a lot of flack from people in his own party for siding with conservatives.
But see, you have to understand, I'm sorry, Silk, you
That's
have to
okay, go
understand that
ahead.
sometimes you have some on the left, they don't want a problem solved. See, because they make money by creating this foolishness where we're always bickering about something. But our president solved this here, and I commend Van Jones.
Well, put it this way, yeah, the president reached out to him, and he responded, and he was every step of the way he was praising the president. He said at the last minute, I thought everything was going to fall apart. Instead, they doubled down. Jared Kushner deserves a lot of credit. He went on to praise the president, too, on opportunity zones,
Yes,
as well as opioid reform.
Absolutely.
And that just shows you that he's authentic. This is what the issues matter more than the party, and that's got to be the new theme.
It has to
And
be
you
the
have
new
to
thing.
remember that President Obama did absolutely nothing, in my opinion, for the community, for prison reforms. He had the opportunity to do that. But things that was plaguing, especially the black community, Obama did not do anything. But our president, President Donald J. Trump, who's for all Americans, stepped in and got the problem solved.
Did.
Well, it seems like there's some confusion on the political left. You've got Van Jones taking heat for praising conservatives. Then you got Nancy Pelosi and AOC. They're saying, hey, there are too many people who are voting in our party, voting with the Republicans. We got to all be on the same team. So when people think, okay, every election, it's like, vote for me, I will go to Washington and work with the other side and get stuff done. But when they're actually there, it's kind of like, nope.
They don't do anything. And see, what I've been telling people is I want you to switch your party to Republican so that you can vote for President Donald J. Trump. Listen, now I know it shouldn't be about the party, but right now we have a Republican in office that's working for all Americans.
So I want to bring you to this story. Congressman Tlaib famously went after Mark Meadows for bringing out Lynn Patton, who was a longtime employee of the Trump organization, who is now with HUD. And she's African-American. He says, oh, yeah, Michael Cohen called the president a racist. Really? Would Donald Trump be a racist if he had hired Lynn Patton for 25 years? And then Congressman Tlaib went after Mark Meadows for saying using a token black person to say your story. Well, they made up. They hugged it out. They talked for a minute. Mark Meadows approached and said, I'm glad we worked this out. It's over. She hops on MSNBC and doubles down. Listen.
I mean, I really do stand by it very much. I wanted to be heard. I wanted to be seen. And for me, at that moment, watching this young woman stand up behind Congressman Meadows in that way was very hurtful, and it was very disrespectful.
Mm-hmm. It's very sickening to see somebody like her. Now, this is what I call the radicals that's in Congress.
Yes.
This is why I tell you, we don't need to rewrite the Constitution. They need to reread it. So where is it? No, where is it in the Constitution? For you to defer somebody and claim that they are a token, and that's a racial innuendo undertone is what you were saying. You know what you were doing, and I think she should step down.
But with her being a
race baiter.
Well, not a race, well, yes, a race baiter, but with her being a woman of color, was she being a token for the Democrats? Duh.
So reread, don't rewrite.
That's absolutely right. And then memorize it.
Okay.
Oh, girl.
You didn't memorize that, did you?
No, thank you.
That was a part of your speech at CPAC.
Right. Well, absolutely. Yes. You know what? I just want Americans, come on, you all, take a look at Venezuela as the example. Okay, take a look at that. Do you want this country to look like that? When you see people pushing socialistic ideas, listen, we can be that one day. And so that's why I am for capitalism. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Obtain the American dream, because I don't want anyone walking around living the American nightmare.
And then whenever you see illegal aliens crossing the border, you don't see them crossing the border at Venezuela, do you?
They come here in America. Because they want to
from
attain this American dream. The president have this economy hot, and everybody want a little bit of it.
That's right.
Ladies and gentlemen, Diamond and Silk. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Meanwhile, she landed in hot water for anti-Semitic comments. Now, Congresswoman Ilhan Omar says President Trump is a dictator. We're going to tell you that story.
Yeah, he's going to be impeached, according to her.
She represents Pete Hegseth's home state, and he's got some thoughts on that today.
We open the door and look who came in. It's Fox and Friends live from New York City, our second live studio audience, and people are excited to be here.
It is so much fun, and when Pete Hegseth walked in, the audience went wild. Good to have you here, Pete.
I got to tell you, I was a little surprised because I didn't think you guys liked Pete. I had no idea.
He's a great man, a great American, fought for our country, and a smart guy. Thank you. We want to bring you on because we want to talk about several topics. This one affects you because you're from Minnesota. You're Congresswoman there, Ilhan Omar. She was in Rolling Stone magazine and said that President Trump has the markings of a dictator, and she believes that impeachment is inevitable.
Boy, she sure is the gift that keeps on giving, isn't she? No, I mean, this is a thought process of the left. I say to her, I think I wrote it in the back of the sheet. Here we go. She was born in Somalia, right? She represents Minneapolis. The president of Somalia, the Somalian Democratic Republic, his name is Mohammed Said Barre. He really was a dictator, and he ran Somalia into the ground. And as a result, America opened its arms after that civil war and welcomed thousands, tens of thousands of those people to our country, a place of peace and a place of democratic values. And she has the audacity to look us in the eye and say that President Trump is a dictator? It's insane, and it should be infuriating to everybody, and it's a lack of perspective about how special this country is. That we have a Constitution that's endured for 240 years. President Trump is doing the best he can. Find me one unconstitutional thing that he's done. And by the way, what he did with recently by calling for funding for the wall will be upheld by the Supreme Court. I mean, this is ultimately something that is constitutional. They're grasping at straws because they hate him. She was elected to hate him. And oh, by the way, if she thinks we've got problems, she should look at her district, the district in Minneapolis, the one district that sent the most people to go fight with ISIS. The most Americans who've gone to fight with ISIS have come from Minneapolis. If you think you've got a problem, maybe look inside your own district and figure out why they're doing that.
That's a good point. You gave us Fran Tarkenton. We appreciate that. But you also gave us that idiot governor. So
Jesse
we really
Ventura and Al Franken, too.
Right, Al Franken. Thanks. We owe you one. Meanwhile, you were just in Israel a couple of times over the last few weeks doing specials for Fox Nation. And Benjamin Netanyahu's in a political fight now for maybe his freedom. I mean, he's going to be indicted. Can you tell? He's been indicted. Can you tell us what he's up against.
Yeah, I'll tell you this. I had a chance to interview the Prime Minister. I've spoken to people very, very close to him, intimately involved in this process. And if you think our deep state is bad here in America, it's really bad in Israel. And they have not been able to beat Bibi Netanyahu at the ballot box. And so they're trying to beat him through these trumped up, he calls it a witch hunt, call it what our president calls it, trumped up charges. What they're charging him with is, first of all, he got a cigar from a friend, which strikes me as a good thing. Second of all, he got positive press coverage from a website, apparently, due to changes in regulations. If you actually look at that website, it's been overwhelmingly negative coverage to him. This is because the deep state in Israel and the bureaucracy there hates him. They can't beat him. The people love him. They appreciate what he's done for the state of Israel. And as a result, he will fight this and he will beat this.
He won't have to step down.
He will not step down. He's been a great friend of the United States of America and great for the country.
So it sounds like the indictments are coming. All right, we got a great crowd in here, about 600 or 700 people. A number of them want to ask Pete some questions. Where's Kim Proctor? Kim, right over here in the center in the back. What's your question for Mr. Hegseth?
My question is it seems that in the House that the anti-Semitism has just run rampant. These people are not being held accountable for that. And if that had been a conservative, we would have been just run off the rails. So there's just such a double standard there. And it's very disturbing to me.
Especially with his congresswoman.
Exactly. The scary part is if a conservative had said that, many on the left today would have embraced it. Yeah. That's the scary part, is that there's no longer a double standard. The standard, it has become a partisan issue, which is what we tried to avoid for so long in this country, is that Israel was a democratic ally in the Middle East, surrounded by enemies. We would support them, in that fight. Now it's creeping back in. Ilhan Omar, it's getting very little coverage. She recently also said, no, I mean, almost none at all, that she's worried about people with split allegiances. Meaning, you might be more allegiance to Israel than the United States. This is how they drive a wedge between our two countries.
Exactly.
We just have to stay as strong, no matter
and we have
what.
to fight that. We just have to.
Pete, when Omar ran, is this the tact? Is this the agenda she went on?
She pretended like she wasn't for boycott, divest, and sanctions, BDS. She said some of the right things. There also was a pro-Israel group, a bunch of rabbis that met with her. They were disturbed after that meeting because of the misinformation she had in her mind. So there is a track record.
And by the way, overwhelmingly Democrats get the American Jewish vote.
Yes, they do, which is astounding to me. I think that may change.
Pete, a few other people have some questions for you too. Where's Gonzalo? Right here on the front row.
Pete, I'm a Mexican-born U.S. citizen. I'm very proud of it. Lately, the last 2 or 3 years, I've been called a racist. I've been called a bigot just because I have conservative values and I support our president. What advice do you have for me? I had a former employer that actually called me those names just because I was reading a non-political Trump book, and they started calling me a bigot and a racist. What advice do you have for me? Because I'm Hispanic, and I get put into a silo of being a liberal just because of my skin color and for who I am.
My only advice is don't stop and never back down, ever. They're coming at you because you're a threat. Look at you. I mean, what you could bring, your voice, your perspective, your background. You're a threat, and they know it, and so they're going to come after you. So stand up. I appreciate it.
And if Donald Trump's going to get 4 more years, it's going to be through the Hispanic vote.
Yep.
All right, Pete, thank you very much. We know a lot more of you have questions, and we're going to try to get to them all morning long. In the meantime, as you can see here in the center, we've got Jillian with some headlines.
That's right. Good morning. And let's start with this story. An Oregon lawmaker introducing a bill to disarm campus police. It would keep officers from carrying guns at the University of Oregon and Portland State University. Students have mixed reactions.
I think we need policemen that are armed.
They should be trained in de-escalation techniques that aren't putting the lives of students at risk.
The lawmaker pushing the bill says it will make students safer following a deadly incident involving a campus officer. There's a new push to stop faith from constantly being under fire. Missouri State Representative Hardy Billington introducing a ban on anonymous church and state lawsuits. He says they allow for attacks on faith without accountability. Critics say anonymity, I can never say that word, is essential for the safety of plaintiffs, including those whose religious liberty is attacked. Some words are just hard, you know. Okay, here's a question. Have you ever fallen asleep on the couch after a long week of work?
Sweetheart, you fell asleep on the couch again.
You know you're supposed to go to your room.
Those annoying friends aren't his only problem if he sleeps in. Guys, how about this? According to a new study, trying to catch up on sleep on the weekend could make you fat. University of Colorado researchers say people who don't get enough sleep tend to overeat. So when they sleep more and eat less, they can't regulate their blood sugar properly. So my blood sugar must be like bonkers. That's the story of my life, Ainsley.
All right.
I always heard you can't make it up, right? Can you make up?
No.
I try.
All right. Thanks, Jillian.
All right, it sounds terrifying. An online suicide game targeting our children. Y'all have heard about this, right? What you need to know about is it called the Momo Challenge? Kurt, the cyber guy, is going to tell us more about it.
Hey, Kurt. Welcome back, everybody. Police are warning parents on social media about a dangerous internet trend called the Momo Challenge, allegedly resurfacing in children's videos.
The Momo Challenge involves this image being spliced into videos instructing our children to commit violent acts against themselves or others. But YouTube says there is no evidence that the challenge is actually real.
Joining us right now is Kurt, the cyber guy. Kurt, is this an actual deadly game, or is it just a hoax?
You know, hoax it could have been, but now people are taking it seriously. Kids are playing it, and parents need to be aware of it. And more than anything else, the tech companies that our kids are engaged with need to take a stronger position to protect kids. YouTube tries to remove the videos that are posted, but this started in 2016. It was known as Mother Bird, and that became Momo, and Momo is the curse you want to avoid. So kids will challenge other kids to do essentially bad stuff that ultimately leads to a suggestion that they should not be alive any longer. So it's a ridiculous, dangerous idea. Whether it's a hoax or not, it's being played and it needs to stop.
And they tell the kids you have to participate in order to not be cursed.
Correct. So you got to play so you don't get cursed. It seems like a fun game until it just spirals and spirals, and eventually you're going to find some people that are not doing well.
Well, we've got some people here in our audience. Have any of you heard of this Momo Challenge? See, now this is a couple of people have. This lady down here in the front. And ma'am, what have you heard about it?
They say that the children would be watching just a regular YouTube video, and in the middle of the video, this Momo person character would pop up and say something like "kill yourself" or.
Do you know I heard Peppa Pig? Kids who were watching
it would
Peppa
pop up
Pig
for a second, and say "kill yourself" or something of that sort. Kill somebody. And it's really scary. Parents have to watch
Is it
it.
up to Facebook or others or YouTube to take this down?
You know, it's really on WhatsApp. That's how it's getting around. And you know who owns that is Facebook.
Right.
But who believes that if Silicon Valley, these companies like WhatsApp, Facebook, YouTube, can make $1 off of our kids, should they be spending some dollars toward protecting them? Let me hear it out. Right. And why aren't we really seeing this? I know YouTube has a statement.
YouTube does have a statement. We want to clear up something regarding the Momo Challenge. We have seen no recent evidence of videos promoting the Momo Challenge on YouTube. Videos encouraging harmful and dangerous challenges are against our policies. If you see videos including harmful or dangerous challenges on YouTube, we encourage you to flag them.
How many executives sat around a table to try to get out of their troubles by figuring out that statement?
A bunch of them.
Right. Anyway. Good to see you guys.
All right.
Have a great weekend.
Don't take the challenge. That's the message.
All right. Meanwhile.
12 minutes now before the top of the hour, Democrats taking another hard left. Their latest plan, try and outlaw private insurance. Think that's a good idea? Congressman Sean Duffy married his wife Rachel, and together they're walking out.
Meanwhile, House Democrats unveiling their latest Medicare for All bill supported by many Democratic presidential candidates.
All right, here with their thoughts is Wisconsin Congressman Sean Duffy, who turned around and married Fox News contributor Rachel Campos Duffy. I don't know how this happened. Well, guys, welcome back.
Hey, it's good to be here. Thanks for having us.
So you're saying now these minorities home more?
I actually like it better for me. It's probably not good for the country, but that's okay.
Well, speaking of what's good for the country, what about Medicare for All?
This is horrible for the country. So, as Republicans, we talk about the cost of health care. This is a $30 trillion bill. Cost doesn't work anymore. People are okay spending a lot of money. It's dangerous.
It's not their money. They don't care.
Right. But you talk about taking health care away from Americans. Remember, if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. If you like your plan, you can keep your plan. This Medicare for All is Medicare for health care for none. What happens is if you have your health care plan through your union, you're a welder, you're a teacher, and you have your health care plan through your teacher plan.
Lose it. Gone.
Gone. You have a Fox News plan? Gone. Everyone loses.
Private insurance company.
There is zero private insurance, and so if you have Medicaid in your state, in Wisconsin, we have Badger Care. It would be a watered-down Badger Care. So instead of shooting for the stars and have better plans for people, improving the plans and the coverage, they go to the lowest common denominator, and they're crappy plans for everybody, but it's the same.
Rachel, as a mom, how do you feel about this? Because you have so many children, and you need your health care.
Absolutely, and I think what it really comes down to is Americans are still Americans. We're not socialists, we're not communists, we like choice, and we like to have choice in healthcare, especially because it is so personal. It is so important to everybody, especially those of us with kids or elderly parents. So I think Sean's absolutely right. I think the Republicans can't talk about this in terms of money, although obviously that is a huge factor in it. They have to talk about it in terms of what's important to people.
Husband's rights? Since when does that happen?
Never. Never. So, but I think what's interesting, if you look at the presidential election on our horizon, Americans like the phrase Medicare for all. That polls really well.
Sure, it sounds great until you figure out the cost and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It would impact every person in this room. Yeah. Where is Robbie? Because Robbie's got a question for the Duffys. Robbie's right over here.
Hey, Robbie.
Front row. He's in the red sweater. Robbie, what's your question?
My question is about the blue wall. As you know, that President Trump won the presidency through very thin margins with the blue wall, including Wisconsin. And most of the blue wall states have gone Democratic in governorships. Yeah. What in your opinion is the impact to look for in 2020? Because the margins are very thin for the Electoral College.
Rob can answer that.
That's a really good question. Are you trying to stump me?
How do the Republicans and how does President Trump look into this fact?
All right, Rob.
Yeah, so quickly, I think that the president would have a really tough time getting through Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, even Minnesota. But Democrats have gone so crazy left that I think our president's going to still win Wisconsin, has a shot at Minnesota, will win Michigan and the presidency.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Great. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having
me here this weekend.
Yeah, can we have the audience this weekend?
You guys can sleep over.
Meanwhile, still ahead on our Friday telecast, Chris Christie, Laura Trump, Kirk Cameron, Michael Lopez, and Tom Holman in front of these folks in our live studio audience. We'll be right back. Well, sit down, folks. Welcome to hour 2 of our second Fox and Friends Live with a studio audience.
Right.
How many people have traveled more than 500 miles to be here? Let's see your hands.
Wow.
Who's traveled more than 1,000? All right.
Okay. We have Texas, San Antonio, about 1,200.
And also, just let me say right now, I usually have to remind people to get dressed. Thank goodness I didn't have to remind you guys. You are all dressed. It's time to get up early.
And all dressed so beautifully. Well, we have Laura Trump coming in today. We have Kirk Cameron. We have Chris Christie. Great show. Jesse Waters is coming up.
And you're going to want to play along because of the Trump-Kim summit at the conclusion of the show today, Tom Shalhoub, who does Quiz Show on Fox Nation, is going to do a world's most famous Kims. And that's going to be the quiz. And it's going to be great. So, actually...
I think Kim Kardashian. Who's more famous, Kim Kardashian or Kim Jong-un?
We're going to find out in a little while.
I know one is in better shape.
Meanwhile, speaking of Kim, the Kim-Trump summit ended abruptly when the president said, you know what, this is not the deal I was thinking I was going to wind up with. North Korea came out and said, you know what, we don't understand. We did not ask for all the sanctions to be lifted. We just asked for some of them. But nonetheless, the president said he wanted to denuke more stuff. If you missed him, here he is last night with Sean Hannity.
It's a much tougher deal to make. Maybe it won't get made, but that's the deal that we should have. And you can't give up everything if you don't get that. Now, we could have done large portions, but you're not getting that. So we'll see what happens. Again, the relationship is very good. He likes me. I like him. Some people say, oh, you shouldn't like him. I said, why shouldn't I like him? I like him. Get along great. We'll see what happens.
So what they actually found out, what Steve was alluding to, they had a different, they tried to spin it seems, to say that we were not asking for absolute sanctions relief in exchange for taking down just one area. that is not the case. And what it turns out is they were doing basically the same thing his father did and his grandfather did, play us to the end, and in the end not follow through. One of these people that was there wrote to me and said, it was the president's finest hour.
Well, here's the thing. Ultimately, the North Koreans figured, all right, he's already got on the schedule a 2 p.m. signing ceremony, so this is in the bag for us. And then when the president realized, wait a minute, this is not the deal I thought I could talk Mr. Kim into, they got up. And that's why the North Koreans now are spinning it like, oh, wait a minute, that's not what we were talked about. That's also one of the reasons why we saw the foreign minister do the press conference and why Mr. Kim, the day before, actually took questions from Western reporters.
And we asked the audience, we asked you guys what you thought, and you represent the folks at home, and you all said you were glad he walked away. Nancy Pelosi actually said she was glad he walked away, too. We weren't getting what was best for our country, and the president said, I'm not going to rush into this deal. He did go on to say something will happen down the line. We will get something worked out eventually.
How many of you in the audience today feel safer regarding North Korea than you did a couple of years ago? Let me see a hand. The lady right here in the back in the white jacket, why do you feel safer? What is it about the situation with the United States and North Korea now?
Well, President Trump's just doing everything he can to protect the American people. He cares about us, and he is at least trying to work out something with the North Korean leader.
Right, he is, and there hasn't been any rockets launched in about 8-9 months, and that means a lot, hundreds of days, so we'll see. And you're from New Orleans, right?
Vidalia, Louisiana.
All right, close. That's right.
Vidalia, like the onion.
Yes.
Yes. I love it.
I would say this. This is what I hope, though. I do hope we start cracking down on how the Russians are beating the sanctions and how the Chinese are beating the sanctions. Let these be real sanctions and start enforcing it. And I do worry about today, South Korea and North Korea are supposed to meet again to start bridging their gap. And South Korea could single-handedly prop up North Korea. That would be counterproductive.
There's another deal that they talked about, too, during the interview. Sean asked him about the Green New Deal, and he mocked it. Listen to this.
It's an incredible thing. I see senators that have been there for a long time, you know, well-known senators, named senators, and I look at them and they're endorsing it. $100 trillion, and you couldn't do it for that. Yeah. But and it's not even the money. It's so ridiculous. No planes. Let's not fly anymore. It is crazy. But personally, they should go with it. I love it. It's one of the greatest plans I've ever seen. As long as they're the ones that have to sell it, not me. Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what the rest of them are going to do. But already some have endorsed it. It's incredible.
He loves it because he's going to run against that. How many? You've all been watching the Fox News channel. How many of you like parts of the Green New Deal? Somebody's got to like part of it.
No, Larry Kudlow was speaking at CPAC. He said the Green New Deal would literally destroy the economy, literally. It would knock out energy, transportation, airlines, jobs, businesses. We would probably lose 10 to 15% of our GDP.
Yeah, but other than that.
Right. But the one thing I think people should understand, as Secretary of Energy Rick Perry has said, we are on a fast track to burning clean energy. And if people are really serious about the environment, they would go nuclear and they would go natural gas. Right. Both we lead the world in, but people don't want to do that. You can't have both, because even if you go electric, guess what powers those fuel plants that power up the electric car? Coal. So you can't have one without the other. And also to point out, too, there's something else going on. While Democrats clearly have momentum in many ways, and they certainly have the House, and they certainly like to put the spotlight on their investigations, CPAC is going on, which is this enormously successful conservative conference that started yesterday. One of the invitees was Van Jones. Van Jones, a famous confidant of Barack Obama and a famous Democrat and liberal, has been praising the president and played a vital role in delivering Democrats for the president's criminal justice reform. But never did I think that he would be one of the key people on stage with Matt Schlapp, the founder of CPAC, last night.
Did you ever think he would be praising conservatives? Listen to this.
Here's the deal. The conservative movement in this country, unfortunately from my point of view, is now the leader on this issue of reform. My problem is I now have a conservative movement that, for libertarian reasons, for Christian conservative reasons, and for fiscally conservative reasons, is actually doing a great job on what should be my issue. This is supposed to be my issue. You are stealing my issue. Take some dadgum credit for being smart. Take some dadgum credit for getting it right.
Well, and he should take some credit, too, because Van Jones worked with Jared Kushner to rally support for the First Step Act, which, as you know, was passed by Congress, and the president has touted that. Diamond and Silk were with us just about 40 minutes ago. They electrified the audience this morning. And they were also at CPAC yesterday, and they had a great time. Anyway, what they said, they had the message that President Obama could not get done what this president has done. Watch this.
Van Jones has been a long advocate for criminal justice reform.
That's right.
So to see him give honor where honor is due, praising this administration for trying to solve this problem, I appreciate that.
Yeah, President Obama did absolutely nothing, in my opinion, for the community, for prison reforms. He had the opportunity to do that. But things that was plaguing, especially the black community, Obama did not do anything. But our president, President Donald J. Trump, who's for all Americans, stepped in and got the problem solved.
Right, and it's true, and I think the president should be talking more about that. So should his surrogates. Talk about how both sides came together on this issue. It got passed on a Friday. I didn't hear anything else about it. Yesterday, Van Jones also pointed out this administration's done a lot on opioids. They've done a lot with opportunity zones to flourish struggling communities. They're bringing in private investment. And listen, he's not going to vote for the president, but he pointed out when there's something done that's positive. And I think if this administration doesn't start selling the good things they do, they're not going to get any benefit from it.
All right, let's hand it over to Jillian, who has some more headlines for us. Hey, Jillian.
That's right. Good morning. And we have some news to tell you about a Fox News alert. Just moments ago, Washington Governor Jay Inslee be all about.
Country's next mission must be to rise up to the most urgent challenge of our time, defeating climate change. This crisis isn't just a charter.
Inslee is the 11th Democrat to announce a 2020 run, so the list grows. All right, this video is hard to watch. A teen is in critical condition after his car flips several times and crashes into a concrete wall. Take a look at this surveillance video showing Jackson Kelly's car getting clipped by a van, then swerving and barreling across a parking lot in Florida. Witnesses say it sounded like a big bomb went off. The driver who hit Kelly is still on the run. All right, you may want to rethink your vacation plans. The State Department issuing a travel warning for the Bahamas because of an uptick in crime. Officials say the Sand Trap area in Nassau and family islands like New Providence and Grand Bahama are seeing more burglaries, armed robberies, and sexual assaults. And how about this? Dr. Seuss is releasing a brand new book. Dr. Seuss's Horse Museum will hit stores this September, 28 years after the famed author's death. An illustrator finished the manuscript after it was found in 2013. It features paintings from famous artists like Pablo Picasso and favorite characters like the Cat in the Hat. The announcement comes just one day before Dr. Seuss's birthday. That's a look at your headlines. Ainsley.
All right,
over to you.
To me right here. Thank you, girl. All right, we have some of our audience members here. I wanted to just quickly find